guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at itsjacino. And I swear every single time I'm about to press live, like people start mowing their lawns, the dog starts barking. It's never quiet. But nevertheless, thank you guys so much for joining me. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal Daily News. Don't know why I call it daily because it's not always daily, but you get what I mean. We're going to be talking the latest Arsenal news today on the show, just ahead of the Carabao Cup matches. I know you guys are going to want to go ahead and watch those, but I wanted to check in, kind of just chat about what's going on at the Arsenal. And if you guys want to talk about anything else, feel free to drop that into the comment section. Let me know where you guys are watching in from. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. So today we're probably going to focus most of our attention on Aubameyang and Nketiah. Two completely different situations. Nketiah with the hat trick in the Carabao Cup match against Sunderland yesterday, and I'm not sure if it's changed anybody's mind in terms of what his role will be for Arsenal moving forward, because it doesn't feel like he has a career or anything past this season like with Arsenal. But Arteta wants him to stay. He has not signed a contract, but he looks like he's improving. So it's an interesting conversation to have. So you guys can let me know how you feel about it. And Aubameyang, some news has come out from Chris Wheatley that he is assessing his options ahead of the January transfer window. Juventus, Barcelona, Manchester City, all supposedly interested in him. So I have a community poll going on right now. You guys can go ahead and vote. But do you think that Aubameyang will leave in January? Let me know what you guys are thinking, yes or no. So, but before we get into the Aubameyang news, I do want to talk about Nketiah because it's interesting. So after the match, Arteta was kind of quizzed on Nketiah, and obviously we all know that he wants him to stay. He's been offered a contract and he has rejected it. And one of the journalists after the match said, how much of an opening is there for Nketiah to get minutes in the Premier League with everything that's happening with Aubameyang at the moment? And Arteta said, with the way he's training and performing, he deserves more minutes. That's the way I would like to respond to that situation, regardless of what happens with any other player. Then, they asked him about, if you want Nketiah to stay, do you think you need to try harder to give him more minutes? And Arteta basically said, we are trying really hard to do the best that we can. The contract has an expiring date and you can't control that. And we've had discussions with Eddie for a long time. I repeat again that his genuine intention is he wants to play football, and that's what's driving whatever decision he's going to make for his future. And you have to respect that. But he's obviously a player we want to keep, and he's come through our system. We will continue to do our best to keep him because we want him as a part of our project and the club. So Arteta very open and straightforward about how he feels about Nketiah. Feels like he has a role to play in the project moving forward. And Nketiah's decision not to sign a contract or to sign a contract with Arsenal will be based around how many minutes that he probably thinks that he's going to get. Then Eddie kind of had his own words, to say about his career. And he basically said that, the interviewer asked, there have been reports that you have been offered a contract and turned it down. And he said, is there any truth to that? And Nketiah said, yes, I'm just eager to play football. That is my ambition. He added, I am here, I am under contract, and as long as I play for Arsenal, I'm going to give my all. And if the manager needs me, I will be ready to help the team. Yeah. And so the main thing here is minutes. And so with Nketiah kind of basically saying that he wants to play and play a lot of minutes, I think that makes it a little bit difficult to give him that. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Arsenal are pretty clear about their intentions to bring in another striker. And so with that, I don't really see how he could be offered more minutes as a starter. But I do think Nketiah is good enough to start for a team in the Premier League. So it's going to be difficult, I think, to convince him to stay, because it doesn't seem like it's motivated by money. It seems like it's motivated by playing time. So yeah, I think it's interesting because the same situation happened with Balogun, where we pretty much thought he was out the door, and then he turned around and signed a contract. So we know that Arteta can be very persuasive, but Balogun is 18 and Nketiah is 22. So that's really different in the life cycle of a footballer. Nketiah is already aged out of the under 21. So if he wants to get back into the England setup, which I'm not really here to debate whether or not he's good enough to do that, but if that's something that he is setting his sights on, he needs to be starting for somebody. And if it's not going to be Arsenal, then it needs to be somebody else. And when I look at Nketiah, I do think that he's improved with his build up play. But he's always been a poacher. As long as we created chances, he was going to score goals. And so it does kind of make your mind wonder, you know, should we be trying to keep him around? Because you might just need somebody around that could just finish off chances, and he is getting better. But ultimately, we've left it a little too late. And I can't imagine that it goes the same way as the Balogun situation, because he's older and he wants to play games. But what do you guys think about the Nketiah situation? Seawalder says, on Nketiah, I'm gutted, but he probably still needs to go. I'd keep him if he was happy to be a backup, but it sounds like he's not. Matt G, hey, how are you? Tam says, I heard the Kuleveski deal has already happened, but will remain undisclosed until mid-Jan. Hopefully this isn't true. No comment. Matt G says, I think Abba will go in Jan, but it makes it more difficult to sell while he's in AFCON. We'll talk about that in just a second. Funky Bunky says, the way Eddie answered the interview makes me think he's determined to leave, even if we start him like every other week. And can you blame him though? I mean, at 22 years old, you need to be kind of playing day in and day out. And I think he showed yesterday that he's good enough to lead the line for somebody's team. Maybe not Arsenal, but somebody's team. So I don't really blame him for wanting to move on. I think that we left it too late in terms of trying to re-sign him and extend him. So it is what it is. But performances like yesterday do make your mind wonder. But we've been in this situation before, where when players are in contract years and they're there to impress, we have to take that in consideration and not revise history. Ultimately, I don't think many of us would say that Nketiah is the ideal striker at the moment to lead the line for Arsenal. He doesn't have a contract, a long-term contract. It's expiring, and he wants to go. So it is what it is, and I won't cry about it. But I do think he's improved, and it might be one of those situations where in a couple of years he shows back up and he looks like the poacher that we've always needed. But in situations like this, you don't always get to keep everybody. And we have Saka, Martinelli, ESR. We have some players that we've kept, that were young players that we brought in, or players through the academy. And Eddie might just be one of those that slips through the cracks that still ends up being good, but we don't need to cry about it, Stevie says, Eddie is still developing. He is turning into the perfect backup squad player. Who knows? He might really push on. I would throw a little money at him and try to keep him, but be honest with him. I mean, the interesting part about this is that if Lacazette should go. Pretty clear about that. Lacazette goes away or goes on a free at the end of the season, and Aubameyang is gone, then you do kind of have two striker positions open. So it would be nice if you could keep Nketiah for another couple of years as a backup, so that you only have to buy one striker. Because it's difficult because now it's kind of like we have two positions potentially open and three strikers are going. So ideally, you'd want to keep at least one of them around. But Nketiah is like determined to go. And as we kind of saw yesterday, Balogun's not really ready either. So it leaves the club in a sticky situation where they need to kind of figure out what they want to do. And so Nketiah, the timing of him going is not really good, but things don't always happen on your time. Let's see. Let's see. He's 22, you guys. Let's see. Yo-Yo says Nketiah has somewhat suffered from being so loved by Arteta. He should have left long ago. Yeah, I mean, if we think back to why Eddie is still here, it's because Arteta brought him back off of loan. He was on loan at Leeds. We cut his loan short. And instead of reloaning him back out to a team that was going to let him play week in and week out, Arteta kept him because Lacazette was so out of form. And then from that moment on, he was just in the squad. But once Lacazette came back into any, semblance of form, he just kind of fell down the pecking order and he really hasn't gotten playing time. And so you could potentially say that maybe if we had just reloaned him right back out, we could have brought him back in after he had gotten that playing time somewhere else, but now he sat on our bench for like a season and a half and he's ready to go, so Arteta really liked him when he brought him back off of loan. But I do think that he needed to go straight back out on loan, but we kept him. And I remember being at the Emirates in February when we played against Newcastle. And I think Eddie led the line that day. I think he started that day over Lacazette. And Lacazette came in at the end and scored this scuffy goal because he was so out of form. I remember that. So Nketiah has been out of the team for a minute, just kind of sitting around. So I don't blame him. Dankset says, I want Eddie to stay and grow, especially if we're getting rid of Aubameyang, but it sounds like his heart is set on moving on. Yeah. The Eddie says, Eddie might not be as talented as Alba and Laka, but at least he tries to get in good scoring positions. Lacazette would have been outside the box for yesterday's goals. The thing that I noticed about Eddie when I rewatched the game and just wanted to focus on him a little bit more is that he was desperate to get in front of the center back. Desperate. Two of the goals were just him waiting for the cross, but instead of just staying planted, he ran in front of, the center back and just boop, right in front of them. And I was like, that movement, I like that because we don't really have strikers that move. They kind of just are like, well, if the cross didn't go right to me, then I don't care, that kind of thing. But I liked his movement in the box yesterday, and he's just a typical poachery type of guy. And, it's not fancy, but it's useful when you're creating chances. Lucas says Tony, Balogun, and Nelly would be enough if we invest heavily in the midfield and a top winger. Yeah, Ivan Toney, for me, just hasn't really kicked on in the Premier League so far, so although I would like to see him a little bit more, and I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, why are we getting him? I just don't know if he's kicked on enough for me to be like, okay, we need to go spend that money on him. And Balogun, he needs a loan. Yesterday kind of showed that. You want to get them playing week in and week out, and Balogun really needs that. And Martinelli needs to be trained as a center forward. So I'm not sure if that would be enough, even with the midfielder and an additional winger. But I get what you're saying. So yeah, with Nketiah, it's interesting. I think he had a really good game. People are kind of changing their tune on him a little bit. When players have good games, you start to change your tune a little bit. I've seen a little bit of, well, maybe we should keep him, but ultimately the choice is his, and he looks like he's making the choice to go. And quite similarly to Lacazette, I just feel like we need to always remember that when players are playing for contracts, they tend to look a lot better, and it's no shade. It doesn't mean that they're bad people, but when you're looking to impress, you tend to play better. And so we can't really forget, what happened before that with Lacazette and Eddie. And ultimately, I think where I kind of stand with it is I'm okay with both of them going. Nketiah, I would love to re-sign him just so that we could sell him for something. Um, but Lacazette is somebody that I'm not going to really change on. He has to go, and so yeah, there you go. Let's see. Yeah, some people are saying we need two strikers. Ahmed says, "What will our strikers look like next season since Abba, Laka, and Eddie are likely to leave?" It's a big question that a lot of people are asking. That's why it's kind of like this is not the ideal situation for Eddie to leave right now, because if Lacazette and Aubameyang go, then you have to buy two strikers, and what will that affect? If you have to buy two strikers, what will that affect in terms of wanting to get a midfielder or two? I personally feel like we need two midfielders, not one. So it kind of leaves me like, ooh, that's not really the best situation to be in. And I was kind of having a conversation. I forget who it was that was on Twitter, but maybe like suggesting that we should get an older striker, on like a cheap older striker. And I'm just like, nah, like where is that striker? Like, who could you get like a good striker that's going to be able to lead the line for us and kind of be a band-aid that's not going to cost a lot but still be good? Like, there's not really a lot of those out there, so it's kind of like not really sure if that's what I would do. Where I kind of land on it is I would prefer us not to buy two strikers. I would prefer us to buy another attacker and a striker, and that would allow Martinelli to become a center forward if that's what Arteta envisions him being. But buying two strikers when you need a couple of midfielders, to me, just feels crazy. Yo-Yo says Nketiah has regularly scored during squeaky bum time. I have more patience for him than others in the squad. Yeah, I remember the goal that he scored in like the 94th minute against West Ham at home last season, and that's one of the goals that I remember him mostly for, because I was like, "Thank you, Nketiah," because we were about to draw that game. C. Walter says, I think there are some teams foolish enough to take a punt on Aubameyang, and to be honest, it could work for them. It's not his talent that's gone, is heart for Arsenal. Funky Bunky says, it's both concerning and exciting that we'll get two new strikers soon, but it could be a disaster. It could be a disaster, but on the other hand, our attack can be completely different, which is much better. It is exciting and also a little bit like, ooh, because the club have to get it right. And I don't really think we should buy two strikers. Like, I really do think our money would be better spent on another attacker, play Martinelli through the center sometimes, buy a really good striker that we believe in that could be for the short term and the long term, and fix the midfield. I really just spending money on two strikers this summer. I just feel like we will be cutting into the budget for other things, and that midfield needs major surgery. We can't go another season without addressing it. Let's see. You guys are talking to each other. Okay, so yeah, we've talked about Eddie. So let's talk about Aubameyang. Let's see. Just pull this up. So this is coming from Chris Wheatley, pretty reliable Arsenal journalist, saying that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is assessing his options ahead of the January transfer window. The former Arsenal captain is still training away from the first team as Arteta looks to avoid a repeat of the Ozil situation. European clubs monitoring closely. So we know one of the things that clubs will look to do in January is to bolster the attack. Because if you find out anything about your team from September to December is whether or not you need goals. And so there will be clubs looking to bolster their attack this January. Whether or not they'd be looking at Aubameyang, I think for me is a little bit like, okay, well, I kind of agree with, I forget who said it earlier. I'm not sure if I think that, I think it's C. Walder. I'm not sure if I believe that Aubameyang is a totally dead striker at this point. I just don't think we play to his strengths. And when you don't play to somebody's strengths, it's really hard to convince them to be really committed as a striker. Strikers are committed to themselves. And yeah, so I'm not sure I agree that like Aubameyang is totally dead. I do think some teams would look at him, but then they look at the wages and be like, do we really want to spend that level of wages on a 32-year-old? You have Barcelona. He's being pictured here in a Juventus kit, and they said Manchester City is also looking at him. So, you know, I think the most important part of this is we're looking to avoid the Ozil situation, which I think when Ozil was originally not in the 25-man roster, there was a lot of drama off of the back of that. Like you could tell that there was a little bit of something there in the air. With Aubameyang being outside of the squad, I have not seen that same level of like disruption. I haven't seen the team look like they're upset that he's not there. But the issue is that if he's training around the team or whatever in the locker room, maybe that would cause something. So I think they want to keep him away from the team long enough to maybe move him on. Now, can we find somebody to take him on? I'm just not sure, but it's just disappointing because it's just like he'd signed that contract and then, all of last season we kind of gave him a pass because he had real life issues that you just have to take at face value, his mom being sick, getting malaria, just a bunch of stuff. This season has rolled around and it's a combination still of us not playing to his strengths, but he just has not been great. And, there were more reports that came out that like he just isn't coming on time. There's been repeat things off the pitch that Arteta hasn't liked. And whether you rate Arteta or not, Pep did the exact same thing with Grealish and Foden. And I know Arteta is not Pep, but anybody that's trying to build a winning culture is not going to accept anybody in the team disrespecting that environment. And I think Aubameyang has done that on several occasions. And whether you like Arteta or not, I just don't think you should expect Arteta to accept that because he's not Pep. I just feel like that's a little bit harsh, but with Aubameyang, if he's going to go, he's got to go in January. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? It's one of those where you can't have him training away from the team until May. That's just going to be, it's just too much. I think it's going to be too much. Do you guys think that somebody will take him or no? If they do, then I would imagine that we would bring in a striker in January, and then you guys could go ahead and get excited about that. I don't really get that excited about the striker situation that much. I'm more of the midfield person that's like, what are we going to do about that? But the striker situation is one that people tend to be a little bit more excited about. So what do you guys think? Let's see. Terrence Tibbs says Juventus' highest earner is Dybala on 220 a week. Abba earns 350. Do you think that he would lower his salary in order to get out in Jan? Yo-Yo says, I'd hate to see Abba bagging against Arsenal. He has to go abroad. Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that would happen if he went to Manchester City. He would play against us, and boom, there it is. It wouldn't happen until next season because we play Manchester City like on New Year's Day New Year's Day or something like that. So it wouldn't happen this season. But yeah, he would score against us. We know. It's just how it goes, isn't it? Yeah, Gamer says Abba stays. Shaheen says we're not signing anyone during during January. Wait until the summer. I don't know if I agree with that. I do think that we will sign someone, whether that's a striker or a midfielder. We will sign somebody. But if Aubameyang leaves in January, maybe we bring in somebody, or at least an attacker. Somebody else in that forward line. Legume says, I think we need to give Martinelli a chance this season up front. If it doesn't work, Vlahovic could be an option up front. I don't know if he would say yes to it. Vlahovic is looking for a really big move to a really big club in the summer, and I'm not sure that we really fit that bill at this point in time. And if I'm honest with you guys, I don't really want somebody who doesn't want to come to Arsenal. If we're willing to give the money and we're willing to pay and he still doesn't want to come, and we've done all that we can, I can't hate the club on like for trying and failing. I just it seems like you would have to do a lot of convincing. A lot of other clubs would have to say no or not have the money, and then we'd have to grossly overpay to get him here. And so, as much as people rate him, which the 3 or 4 times that I've attempted to watch Fiorentina, I thought he looks like an up and coming good young player, but I just don't see a finished product there. I see a huge risk at 80 million. I don't really want him if he doesn't want to come to Arsenal. It just is what it is. Like, I know he's the hottest thing because Holland is out of our range, but I'm not sure that I believe that he's really worth 80 to 100 million. I just can't see it. Not from what I've seen. And again, I don't want anybody who doesn't want to come to Arsenal. Lucas says Amin Guri would be a good option, but we were never linked. So I don't think we were ever linked with him either. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, I think a better midfield would permit Arsenal to commit to using inverted forwards like City, Liverpool, instead of a 9 like Chelsea. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you guys see it. I think I'm starting to really like the false 9 or the 9.5 or whatever Lacazette is doing at the moment. So I'm kind of looking at strikers that do something similar, that are younger and better than him. I think that's just I don't know if that's just a band-aid right now because that's what works best for Arteta at the moment, but I kind of am feeling that a little bit. So I've been looking at players like you guys know I'm a huge fan of Gabriel Jesus. I don't think we'll get him, but him or like Jonathan David, who profiles very similarly to Lacazette but is younger and going to be better, so I just think that like it depends on how you see that position, but midfield needs major surgery. I would hate to spend most of our money on like a striker that doesn't really solve all of our issues and then skimp on the midfield. Like that needs major surgery. Matt G says we need to let the Vlahovic thing go. He doesn't want to come to us. Let's move on. That's kind of where I sit with it. I don't think he really wants to come to us. It's pretty obvious. And so you can't really beg him. It is what it is. Mohammed says, yes, make Smith Rowe into a false 9 or Watkins. We're linked with Watkins. We're linked with Calvert-Lewin, Jonathan David, Isak, all kind of risky. But I would, since I know the Lacazette thing works with the players that we have in the squad right now, that's kind of what I want to see. But I see some people want like a physical striker, somebody that could be a presence in the box. We don't really have that, so it depends on how you see it. It really does. Taz says the upcoming striker that can press to fit in with the squad that we have. Ryan says Aubameyang's best European elite score. Aubameyang best European elite score. Not sure what that means. Terrence says Watkins is overrated. Yeah, so will we go for the flashy guy or will we go for a system player? It really just depends. But the striker situation, it's just it's one where we just have to kind of wait and see. Arteta might go for somebody that's similar to Lacazette because that's what he's been wanting the whole entire time. Or it might have just been a Band-Aid and it's the best that we have at the moment. And he may surprise us and go for a complete 9, somebody like a Vlahovic kind of striker or Calvert-Lewin. So we'll see. We'll see. Yo-Yo says, I would love to see Danny Olmo or João Felix as false 9s. I'll continue dreaming about this. I like a false 9. It's really growing on me because of the way that Lacazette is playing him. We've been loosely linked with João Felix. I don't think we have a chance in hell to get him, but I do like those types of players, and I think that that's what suits us right now. Somebody made an interesting point the other day that Calvert-Lewin, the way that we play right now, we don't lump balls into the box the way that some other teams do. We kind of are a cutback team. We try to get on the edges of the box and slip players in. And we don't really lump balls into the box like that. So would Calvert-Lewin be a waste? Or will we start lumping balls into the box now because he comes in? And ultimately, he's a poacher. Calvert-Lewin, when I watch him play, I just don't see much to his game. It's not very well-rounded. So would he be of use to us outside of the box? Maybe not. So if you want a poacher, just keep Eddie. And I was like, that's a really interesting point. I think we need somebody a little bit more complete that can be a part of build-up, that can come in deep, but also get into the box and contribute with goals. And because that's what I'm seeing right now that really works for us. So I just feel like right now what Lacazette is doing, we need to improve upon that. But hey, depends on how you see it. Let's see. What are you guys saying? Tam says, is Jonathan David a false nine striker? He's more of like a second striker, but he played number 10 in his life, and you can tell that he has. If you watch him play, he profiles very similarly to Lacazette. I mean, it's crazy how similar they are. And if you even look on any websites that do like statistical data for footballers, and he always profiles similarly to him there as well. He drops deep. He links play. He can get into the box. He's kind of like a stockier dude, and then he also can press. And those are the things that we like about Lacazette right now. So yeah, he can play that position or as a second striker or out wide. So he's not somebody that's going to get the Arsenal fan base up like off their seat, because he's not a big name, and it's not Vlahovic, it's not Haaland, it's not that. But I think we need somebody that fits the system more than a big name. That's my personal opinion. Blaze says, hi, Jess. Jonathan David will leave Lille at the end of the season, this agent said today. Do you think he'll be fit perfectly into the system for Arteta? From what I've seen, because he plays so similarly to Lacazette, I think he would be fine. He would be good. He's somebody that is not the finished article, so obviously he would get better over time. But in the short term, again, he's very similar to Lacazette. C. Wilder says, I really like the look of Isak, but to be honest, I'm beginning to trust Edu in terms of transfer and Arteta in terms of transfers. I mean, what I would say is that in the $25 to $30 million range, I think Arteta and Edu have been okay. I think even Raul was okay in that kind of area. Where Arsenal has been faulty is 50 plus, 45 million plus. Those signings have left a lot to be desired. At this moment in time, Thomas Partey is quite polarizing. We know Pepe is polarizing. Lacazette cost us a lot of money, very polarizing. So when it comes to that level of signings, I'm not really that worried. I think we're pretty good in that $25 to $30 million range. Anything above that, we kind of are a little bit we haven't been that successful. And I would imagine whatever striker we bring in is going to cost us more than 30 million. So I do worry, but I agree that you kind of have to give them a little bit of trust because of what they did over this last summer. Taz says, might have to spend big to get who we want that will fit perfectly. I mean, I don't have any doubt that Arsenal will spend big, but I just don't know who the right striker is, because I just don't know what all the strikers we're being linked with are completely different. They're all different. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Vlahovic, Jonathan David, Ollie Watkins, they're all very different. So that's what makes it hard to really pinpoint what we're trying to do. And so I don't think that we won't spend big money, but the second part of what you're saying is who we want that will fit in perfectly. I don't know who that player is. Legume says, think if we're looking for a false nine, maybe Rafinha could fit that bill. He turns in on his left. He is super creative. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Rafinha playing as a false nine, but I hear what you're saying. C. Wilder says, I don't even think DCL is the best striker at Everton. It's funny. A lot of people are saying that it's probably Richarlison, But I have huge concerns about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and what he would be able to give to us outside of the box. If we're going to create tons of chances and just let him stand in the box and put them away, fine. But then keep Eddie. Try to get Eddie, start Eddie, because Eddie is a good poacher. He just needs people to create for him. The way that we play now with basically double tens, as Lacazette playing a 9.5, false nine, whatever you want to call it, I just think that if that's what we continue on with, we need somebody that can actually play outside of the box. And Calvert-Lewin can't do that. I just can't, I don't, not up to the standard, so I think it's something you need to look at. Let's see. Seawalder says, I love Gabriel Jesus, but not getting my hopes up. I just don't understand Arsenal fans that would turn down Gabriel Jesus. I get that he's not Aguero, but have you looked at his numbers? Like, in terms of what he creates, the pressing, the link-up play, he would be a better version of Lacazette if that's what you want to go for. But the thing is do you want to spend 60 million on a better version of Lacazette, or do you want to get this special striker? I prefer going for people that fit the system more than just, if I'm going to spend 60 million, I want it to be a big name. I don't know if that's the way that you should go and spend your money, but we'll see what happens. Anything under Mbappe and Haaland for me is a risk. Any person is a risk. Yo-Yo says the reports were that the club were considering Tammy Abraham and Lautaro Martinez last season. Who makes more sense for this team now? Again, neither are similar at all. So if you're looking at Tammy Abraham, then you probably would be looking at a Dominic Calvert-Lewin or, an Isak, somebody like that. Because I think they, although have some different attributes, are quite similar in the way that they play. And then Lautaro Martinez is a second striker, and he doesn't really hold the line on his own, but he's a really, really good player. So who makes sense for this team right now? I think with the way that we're playing, if we continue to play with Martinelli off of the left wing, playing almost like a second striker, that's pretty much how he plays anyway. I think you could play with Lautaro Martinez and Martinelli together. I guess with Martinez, is always plays with a bigger striker that can knock the ball down to him, and they link together, and it's just a weird one. I don't know if, I think Lautaro Martinez is the better player, so I almost would want him a little bit more because he's the better player. But can he lead the line on his own? I don't know. Tammy Abraham, I like the link in the summer. He would give you that height in the box, and he does have a little bit of presence in there. He's not bad on the ball either. I think for the way that we play right now, I would have to say that I think Lautaro Martinez might be a better fit. But that's a difficult question to ask because I don't think either of them are perfect, to be honest. I could see either of them. No. Tammy Abraham. No, because Lautaro Martinez, for me, has to play in a two. Like, I know for Argentina, he plays by himself, but he has to play in a two, and we don't play with two strikers up front. So Tammy Abraham would probably be the better fit right now. Let's see. DJ says, I think Watkins would be perfect. What I will say about Ollie Watkins is he does give off Lacazette vibes. I just find that to be a little bit underwhelming because, I don't know, maybe it's the snobbery. Maybe it's like feeling like, I don't know. Watkins does give off Lacazette vibes. So there's that. I don't think Watkins is a championship level striker because he plays in the Premier League for Aston Villa and he does pretty well there. So I don't think he's a championship level. Let's see. The gamer says substance over hype. We need a player that fits, not one with a big name. I mean, I think that that's the apprehension about buying somebody who's a little bit more obscure, is that spending money on, because there's a lot of like, we need to buy the the game changer, the big name. We've kind of built the foundation, and now we need somebody that's going to kind of give us that boom, but let's keep it real. Arsenal have never really been the team to buy stars. That's not really been our thing. We usually do buy the more obscure choice, and then they fit, and then we turn them into stars. That's the Arsenal DNA. So I'm not really that fussed about what the name is. I feel like Vlahovic is so much of a, because he's the big name right now and he's catching the headlines, but I just don't see him as somebody that is not a risk at 80 to 100 million. I think he's a huge risk. But not only that, I just don't feel like he fits what we're doing right now. And he doesn't want to come to Arsenal, but when I watch Jonathan David play, I think that's somebody who's quite similar to Lacazette, but younger, scores more goals, and has a high ceiling. That's who I'd probably go after. So there's that. Let's see. Blaze says, Jess, do you think we also need to buy another midfield? What midfield type do you want Arsenal to buy in the transfer window? I think we need two midfielders because as much as I don't like to say this, I don't know if we can rely upon Thomas Partey at the moment. I think he'll come good, but we don't want to be in a situation where if he's out, we're just like, what's going on with the midfield? And I think Sambi's really young, and I still think we need to move on to move away from Granite. So in January, if we could pick up somebody like Aouar, if we could pick up somebody like, I think we need somebody that can progress the ball. That's a really good ball progressor in midfield. Somebody that can connect the defense to attack, somebody that's not afraid to get on the ball in tight spaces, somebody that's a little bit older than the players that we have now, or at least more experienced. And just I think Aouar would be a really good choice for that, or even Arthur Melo. I think we need a different profile. I know people like Renato Sanchez because he's a really good dribbler and he can progress the ball quite well. Aouar does that, but at a more elite level, and he's more reliable. And Arthur Melo is also a really good ball progressor. He's just somebody that's been out of form for Juventus for a year. So if you're looking for somebody like that can progress the ball, I think that's something that we need that we don't have, because Granite cannot progress the ball dribbling. He's a passer, and he's not good in tight spaces, and he's not good when he's pressed. Thomas Partey should be better at it, and we've seen glimpses of it, but he hasn't been as good this season. So basically a press-resistant ball progressor that can connect the defense to attack. An 8 doesn't have to be a 6, can be just an 8 that has defensive qualities maybe, but also can progress the ball. And for me, that would be Arthur Melo / Aouar. I think you could get either one of those in January. And then we need a 6. We need somebody that could that's going to mop things up, because I don't think Thomas Partey is necessarily, that's not his best role. And we just don't have like a 6. El Neni was even struggling yesterday as a lone 6 in midfield against League One opposition. We just need somebody like that. So those are the two profiles that I think we need. For the 6, you could bring in Zakaria, you could bring in Kessie, you could bring in Basuma, you could bring in those are probably the main ones, those 3. So I'd be looking at one of them to come in, maybe not in January, but at the end of the season. But mid-season, we need somebody who is a press-resistant dribbler that can connect the defense to attack. Somebody that a deeper midfielder can give the ball to, and they get us up the pitch. Somebody kind of like a cheat code, the way that we have with Tavares sometimes. Somebody like that, but that's very press-resistant, that can get up the pitch. That's why people like Renato Sanchez, is because he's relatively press-resistant, but he's unreliable because of his injuries. But Arthur Melo and Aouar can give you the same thing, but at a higher standard. So that's what I would look for in a midfield. Let's see. Coach Dave says, I like Aouar, but he has way too much swag for Arteta. Plus, he doesn't like players associated with the Emery era. Okay. Champ says Arthur is only 25 as well. It's mad. He is young. I mean, we're talking about players that in January, it's difficult to get players that are the best players at the club and people really rely upon. So yeah, you're going to be looking at players that are maybe a little bit on the outskirts of the fringes of teams, but you want to get the best of those. And it is always a risk, but it's kind of how we got Odie, and so I wouldn't be opposed to going to Juventus and saying I want a loan with an option to buy for Arthur Melo. I think they're desperate to get rid of him because I don't think it ever worked out. That fraudulent loan that happened, that swap between him and Pjanic, I think was just insane. So if you watch how he played for Barcelona, you can kind of see that is a profile that we don't have. Does it solve our defensive center midfielder issues? No. But I also think we'll have to wait until the summer to address that because the options that we want are either going to be going on a free at the end of the season or they're not going to leave their club mid-season. So that's all. Mohammed says, what about Ruben Neves? I don't think he's particularly press resistant, and he's more of a six-ish or deep line playmaker, I think. And I just never really rated him that well or that much. He just doesn't meet my eye test. So he's one of those where I'm like, if he came to Arsenal, I would be like, cool. But watching him against Chelsea, I was a little bit like, nah, like he's not really what I'd be looking at. If I was looking for a six, I would look for a Kessie, Basuma, or Zakaria. That's kind of what it is. I'd move away from the deep line playmaker that's kind of slow, that's not really press resistant. You guys know I love Bruno Guimaraes. I just don't think we can get him mid-season. But if we were looking for, like, if there was a deeper line playmaker-y type player that we could bring in, Bruno is one of the most well-rounded midfielders in Europe. He can dribble past somebody, he can defend, he can distribute from deep, he can play a little bit further up and pick a pass. So we would have to probably wait to the next season to get him, but I think he would be excellent at Arsenal. So yeah, that's kind of it. I don't really understand the Kulusevski links. I've tried to make him good while I watch him play on compilations, and even in his compilations, I just think that's such a meh signing. I just don't see how he would improve us. So if that's what we go for in January, I'd be like, oh, that's it. But other than that, I mean, I feel like we will address something. Hopefully it's the midfield. I think we could go the rest of the season with what we have at striker and really address it in the summer when we're not under pressure. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But just wanted to kind of do a quick little, news and just talk to you guys like Q&A style. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the show. We'll be back tomorrow at some point to talk about something. So you guys know I just kind of wake up and figure out what you guys are talking about and then make a show about it. So make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure that you guys share this, get into the community poll. Let me know if you guys think that Aubameyang will leave in January, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.